Show on the road.
I really didn't watch any MLS games this weekend at all. So just throwing that out there that I've got very little to contribute.
Only watched Columbus this weekend.
I watched
Toronto, which was fun.
I did manage to see a couple things. I managed to see that the Timbers managed to draw own goaling in like the 90th minute, so that's impressive. And I watched Simon Borg with the volume off because I can't stand Simon Borg.
But you can still hear him.
I can still just like, yeah, it's still somehow just like
the normal volume when you need it.
Yeah.
Well, if everybody at least saw their own games, that's a good start.
Yep. Yeah. All right.
Oh, we have both Chris and Pete here for the first time in like...
Since we all got drunk.
Yeah.
And then before that, it was like another month or two since Chris and I have been on the same pod.
Yeah. So who is going to intro and host for us today?
I will definitely... Yeah, I'll defer to Chris. I've done plenty lately.
I was going to make Pete do it because I don't know you guys anymore.
Head first.
Oh, man.
Let me look at the thing. Should we start off talking about the World Cup today? Because that was crazy.
Yeah, I feel like we have to at least mention that.
Because I also have an MLS points to make about the games that happened.
You mean like Julio Cesar just watching the ball fly into the back of the net?
Not even
evenly.
First MLS player to ever play in a semifinal.
Yeah. God.
Look at him go.
Yeah.
Right,
I think we should bring that up. We should be like, well, so the MLS reference in this game was probably one of the most crushingly depressing parts, just watching him like tearfully pull the ball out of the net again and again and again.
There was Mark Geiger. Mark Geiger was the fourth.
Oh, that's true, yeah. Good job, Mark. All right, let's stop talking about this so that we can talk about it in a couple minutes and pretend like it's fresh, that we haven't already exhausted it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to /MLS Cast. I'm Chris. I haven't been here in a while. Last time I was here, I was pretty drunk, so it's good to see you all again. My Reddit username is PatLandups11.
I'm Ian, username Armascargo.
And I'm Josh, username 97227ist. And the last time I saw you, Chris, I was also really drunk. So don't worry, anything that you said that you may be embarrassed about, I don't remember anyway. So.
And I am Pete, username PunkRockPete, and I also was quite drunk the last time we were around Chris.
We're all pretty drunk.
Yeah.
You know, there's a whole second half to that I
know. Which you probably shouldn't, because that's the part where I'm pretty sure I said crazy things, though I don't really remember what.
Yeah, that stays locked in the archives.
Yeah. There's that gets used for blackmail later on when the gang breaks up, and you know.
Or if we need to fund some sort of like server time, we can get a Kickstarter going.
Yeah.
Put bonus DVD
based on how embarrassed we will be at each.
Yeah.
All right,
for every 10 minutes past where we stop recording, that's going to be the extra cuts.
Yes. All right, let's talk about the World Cup.
Hey, there was a game today. Did anybody happen to see that game? I think it was probably a real close, well played match.
So Germany and Brazil just happened. To anyone listening, we're all just sitting here in shock.
Yeah, somewhere there's somebody who put a bunch of money down on Germany winning by 6 goals. And like probably the person taking the bet was just like, just it's like, oh, you must be really drunk. That's why you're doing this. And now they're pulling back, I don't know, several $1,000s. I mean, the odds on that are gotta be like astronomical.
It's like the equivalent. It's like the equivalent of betting on.
But yeah.
It's like the equivalent of betting on the safety in the Super Bowl this year. You know, just wild odds.
Except there have been safeties in the Super Bowl like the
What
last
is I think
5
it was
years or something.
the first score, right?
But it was the first play of the game. That's
true.
that was the whole bet. There was a crazy thing about. I guess people make that bet every year. They have these wild bets they make that cost them very little and have a huge payoff. And every year people bet on the fact that the safety would be the first play, and it never has happened until this year.
Wow.
And I think we would all agree that Brazil getting blown out in Brazil in the semifinals the way they did was pretty unlikely.
Pretty unlikely. Also, the guy who put money on Suarez biting someone, he's got to be pretty stoked as well. Yeah, but that was...
We're pretty heavy gamblers over here.
Yeah, I know.
That's what we base most of our thinking around, is just where we can make the most money.
Yeah, well, you know, just want to accept like the inveterate kind of like chancer that I am.
So
we should be betting on Canadian soccer then, because it's all crooked up there.
Yeah, it's true. I know. But I'm not doing this in any organized fashion. It's just kind of like random stuff.
We're just leaving it to chance.
Yeah.
Just fund up and see what happens.
So the only MLS player that was involved in the match today was Julio Cesar, who...
that was the first time an MLS player has played in the semifinals of a World Cup.
And it went quite well.
He got a lot of camera time.
Yeah, he really got a lot of camera time. Too bad a lot of it was while his back was turned and he was picking
almost
the ball.
every highlight.
Oh man. You've gotta wonder what's going on in the streets. I remember there was like a big announcement, you know, right at the end of the game. It was like, oh yeah, all the Brazil fans, you need to wait for a police escort.
The German fans.
Sorry, the German fans need to wait for a police escort to like need to wait for the Brazilian police to like get them out of the stadium safely. It's got to be a kind of testy time, because I think the one thing that was going to save Brazil from, you know, like re-experiencing all the protests and stuff that they had during the Confederations Cup was them winning it. And to not win this game without Neymar, but even more importantly without Thiago Silva, I don't think anybody was shocked, but holy shit, they just stopped. They just stopped. It was crazy.
Brazil's play throughout the World Cup. I don't think with those players they had a chance to take Germany down at this point. They haven't had a great World Cup.
No, I don't think they had a chance to win either, but there's not winning, and then there's just absolutely capitulating. And
yeah, I made the point to my friend after the game, was like, you know, if Brazil loses by like a goal or two, maybe they don't riot, but Jesus Christ, this is something different, totally.
Yeah.
Josh, you spent some time in America do Sud, and how is, you know, they try to make the point on ESPN after the game, trying to relate this to something in American sports, and I feel like you can't do that, because this is Brazil playing soccer, its game, at home, the thing they care so much about. You saw all those crying fans. What's that got to be like?
Well, you know, I haven't spent a ton of time in Brazil. I've spent a lot of time in Argentina, which, similar to Brazil, has, you know, in the States, there's, you know, we all know there's lots and lots of games, and very few of those games we have genuine international competition in. You know, nobody else really plays American football. A few people play basketball, but we're far better. A few people play baseball. And, you know, Brazil is like, in most South American countries, Argentina, Uruguay, and Brazil in particular, and Colombia to a lesser extent, I mean, it's the game, there's really no competition, and it's really like a point of just, you know, the focus of all of the energy that we pour into college sports and all the different sports that we have. Like, just imagine that all on one thing, and then imagine that you are the most successful country at it. And also imagine that the eyes of the world are on you, and it's like a pressure cooker. I mean, you could see all those Brazil players were just absolutely inconsolable at the end of the game, because there's just such national pressure on them. And I think that, I mean, there's no way that there's not going to be some political repercussions for this, and, you know, street protests or I don't know what, but I think the whole attitude in Brazil is probably not going to turn into like out and out rioting, but I think suddenly people are going to say like, this was supposed to be a celebration of us, and now we've just been humiliated at our basically their sport in their, they've got 5 trophies in it. They're far and away the most successful team. Well, Germany is very close, but I mean,
they've now been to more. After Sunday, they'll have been to more World Cup finals in Brazil.
Yeah, but
and they now have the all-time goal scorer.
Yeah, and so to have all these things happen, Ronaldo gets displaced as leading scorer, and Brazil gets displaced as being in the most finals, and to have it happen in that way, I think people are really crushed, but I also think it's going to suddenly be the people in Brazil I think they're going to feel like they really got not only let down by the team, but let down by the politicians and kind of hoodwinked by FIFA. I think it's going to get kind of ugly down there, and I think the atmosphere for the next 2 games, which are 2 huge games, and Argentina has there's several 100,000 Argentinians there to watch the game, so I think there'll be a decent atmosphere, but it's not going to be like it was before, where you had Brazilians in there making a huge noise and cheering no matter who was playing. That's all going to vanish. I think it's going to get a lot different.
Well, let me ask you this: Do you think that it's going to help with the knee-jerk reactions that all those goals came in the first half? Everybody kind of had time to let it sink in before it was time to take to the streets. It wasn't any penalty kicks. It wasn't.
Yeah.
They didn't throw it down at the end of the game. Everybody kind of knew what was happening once halftime hit.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I don't know what the feeling's like on the street.
Protests based on the things people were already protesting, the right places, et cetera, et cetera. But it might be the difference between a protest and a sports riot.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, the Brazilian police they're not the most they don't have a soft touch, I would say. So you never know. If you get a couple thousand people in the street anyways, and then the Brazilian police do what they've been doing, which is, beat everybody and tear gas it and spraying everybody with fire hoses and stuff like that, then it could get really, really ugly. And, so I don't know what's going on in Mineiro right now, but it's definitely going to change the complexion of the next 2 games for sure. And
Brazil has lost another game to play.
Yeah, they got to play the 3rd place game. So.
Oh Jesus! I didn't even think of that.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh no.
And potentially that 3rd place game could be against Argentina.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
And depending on I think that was a lot of people's dream final. That's also a legit. There have been a couple incidents with the Brazilian police, getting kind of rough with Argentinian fans, who admittedly lots of them are very, very poorly behaved, and that goes for Argentinian fans in all football, club and national countries. So that could be. That could be really ugly, or it could be great. It could just kind of be like, hey, we're both out of it, and who cares, and let's just have fun. Or it could get really nasty.
Especially if the Dutch win 7-1 also.
I would like to avoid that. I would like to avoid that both for the violent implications and also because I don't want a UEFA final.
Yeah, the thing is Argentina are so bad at the back, and they haven't been tested by any team that they've played yet, really. There is certainly the potential for Arjen Robben to...
Belgium had some pretty good attacking players.
They had good attacking players, but they didn't really attack. They didn't really run at them. The Argentinian backline is not good. You could either see Holland kind of lose 1-0, or I could see Holland win 4-0 or something. You could see
kind of look like that Spain game again.
Yeah, you could see Arjen Robben just fly in past the Argentinian defenders, and I would love it to not. I would love to see Germany Argentina, because I like Argentina and I lived there and whatever. To avoid the UEFA all final, but also I think it'd be, I don't know. It would be, well, I don't know, because Germany Netherlands is
Germany Netherlands is big.
That's a big game. Yeah, that's a big rivalry. That's the '74 World Cup all over again. So
right. And the way I think about it is that, and this is what I thought about the semi today. This isn't by any means a vintage Brazil team. This is kind of a vintage Germany team, though. I mean, you look up and down both of the rosters, and I see the core of the German team is from a Bayern Munich team that's won Champions League in the last 2 years, or like a year and a few months ago. Has won the Bundesliga like 11 times in a row or something.
Yeah.
And whereas Brazil, you look up and down the roster, and first of all, there's only 4 that are playing domestically in Brazil, and I feel like if Brazil is gonna, because they've realistically had 3 consecutive disappointing World Cups, and I feel like a big part of that is a whole bunch of their players are playing. They grew up in Brazil and they grew up with Jogo Bonito, but they moved to Europe and they play the majority of their professional careers there, and suddenly, they're being crafted by English managers, by German managers, by Italian managers, and it's not the same style of play that Brazilians are used to when they come back and play for Brazil.
Yeah, but I mean the whole the whole Jogo Bonito thing is not. There's been a lot of articles talking about the kind of the fallacy of that. Out of that team in '82, there came this idea. People didn't even call it that. That's actually from Pele's autobiography. That term, people call it football arte, which is played that way in a long time. Those teams are consistently getting more and more pragmatic and kind of dirty, and I think you're right. I think a lot of it is that that players are going over and playing. I mean, Scolari used to manage Chelsea, and they were not a pretty side to watch when he was managing them, and most of the
really
players
are.
Yeah, a lot of the players are playing in Italy and Spain and England, and some of them in France, and the people at Real Madrid and Barcelona, you've got to imagine that's a little bit odd to be. Those teams have such radically different styles, and the players that are really the real standout players on the Brazil team, most of them are playing for, or a lot of them are playing for those two teams, which have really different styles. Then you've got David Luiz and all those other players from, Oscar and those guys playing for Chelsea, which is, a very talented but fucking abysmal team to have to watch most of the time. Yeah, I mean, it's just, you're right, it's like super schizophrenic styles, and this whole idea of we're gonna get out and play beautiful, nobody's been doing that for years. Ask them to suddenly come together and just be like, oh hey, be a Nike commercial. It's
so I feel like it has something. I feel like it has something to do with the decline of the Brazilian league. I mean, I read an article shortly after the U.S. got eliminated that in order for U.S. to realistically want to win the World Cup, MLS eventually needs to be a world-class league, and I feel like that makes a lot of sense. For that same reason, if you want a bunch of your players playing similar styles to each other, you want most of them playing a similar style for their club teams. Germany, like I said before, most of that team is Bayern Munich. The guys that aren't play for, Arsenal for the most part, who are coached by, a very German style, pragmatic type guy, who's actually French, but whatever. And Brazil doesn't have that anymore. They don't get their players from the domestic league because the domestic league has been going downhill for 10 years now at least, right?
Well, it's on the way up because Brazil itself is being buoyed by oil money. But so there's something else looking at the German side. Yes, a lot of their players play together a lot. And they have a coherent style. But another thing was that there was a big change in Germany in the mid 2000s when they felt like they had some disappointing performances in the World Cup, and they started bringing lots of younger players through, and the architect of that was Jurgen Klinsmann. I mean, he's never been a very tactically astute coach, and even when he was coaching the German national team, Jogi Löw was the guy who was calling all the shots about who was going to be in and where they were going to play. Klinsmann was really in charge of youth development and bringing through a lot of those players like Özil and Müller and Khedira and a lot of those guys, bringing them into the national team setup because he saw them being promising young players and kind of scooting out some of the old guard that was in there, and that's when they really started to turn it around in the last 7 to 8 years, and it's paid huge dividends. They've all been playing together for a while, and yeah, a lot of them are in Europe and playing together in teams that have somewhat similar styles, but I think a lot of it too is just having a good coach and having a good youth setup that keeps people playing together for long periods of time. And the Brazilian team is kind of schizophrenic. It's just constantly, you've got a couple mainstays in there, but a lot of the midfield and a lot of the supporting cast is just constantly getting rotated. That's got to be really hard to maintain anything. So Klinsmann. So maybe, hey, someday we'll be Germany. We just keep playing Klinsmann. If we just keep paying Klinsmann like boatloads of money.
I was reminded recently, thinking about this before the pod reminded me of something Bruce Arena said at the beginning of the year, criticizing the appointment of Klinsmann and how the American team should be coached by an American guy and should be mostly made up of MLS players. I think all of that was really silly, but the point he was trying to get at, the last sentence that he said, which was, in reality, our solutions will ultimately come from our culture, which I feel like is, as an overarching point, is kind of what needs to happen in America. Just that we need to have not a distinct style of play, but just a continuous. There's a better word out there that I'm not finding in my head right now, but continuity is important. And like you said, Germany has it, Brazil doesn't. And the U.S. will want it eventually, and they're getting towards there. And that's what Arena was trying to say, but said a lot of really silly things before he said that.
Well, I think Arena's point misses a little bit, because he says, it needs to come from our internal culture. But I think the key is we have to jumpstart our internal culture. Our internal culture, I mean, it is what it is. It's what it's been for years, and without any changes being made, which is why they brought Klinsmann in the first place, was to make changes to the internal culture. They're not, he's not here just to recruit from overseas. He's here to rebuild everything from the youth on up, and I think he's been doing. I mean, we've seen results from that already, and I think that that's what it needs to be. It does need to come from within, but you need to change what that within is to get better products coming out of it.
Should we move on?
I think we should move on.
Let's make it happen.
Let's do it.
World Cup. Let's talk about MLS.
Yeah, fuck the world.
Well, we can mix the two. There's some World Cup fueled funny transfer rumors.
Talk about the World Cup, can we just give a quick shout out to Costa Rica?
Yes, representing CONCACAF.
Say your goodbyes to Gio Gonzalez, Chris.
Hey, as long as it comes with a boatload of cash and we can buy in a replacement, I'm okay with it. Okay.
Man, I tell you, coming down to penalties for that team to go to the semis, huh?
That was They were what, the third team out, or were they the second or the third team out of CONCACAF? They were the second place, right?
Third.
Yeah, they were second place.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Honduras was third. Mexico was fourth.
From beginning to end. And if you looked at their performances, it was, that's why I'm going to be saying goodbye to Giancarlo Gonzalez. They had a couple of shutouts in the World Cup in one of the highest scoring World Cups of all time. They got out of a ridiculously tough group that I think once they started excelling and became a group of death, they're not going to...
They allowed two total goals, one to Uruguay and one to Greece, the most boring team to watch in the World Cup.
Yeah.
And they shut out Italy, they shut out England, they shut out the Dutch. So good on you, Costa Rica.
That Costa Rican offside trap was amazing. I saw a stat somewhere. It was like Costa Rica.
It was twice as much as the next.
Yeah, it was like they had 41. Yeah, and the next team had 20 or something like that. I mean, they were just so well drilled. Nobody could get past them. I swear, in that game against Holland, like Ian Robin was offside about 30 times. It was crazy. That's the kind of thing that you can do, like when you're willing to sit back and you have a really well-drilled team. I mean, it's amazing. It's really. I wanted them to go through so badly.
Me too.
Really, yeah, it was.
I was conflicted because we talked to our new friend Daniel the Dutchman recently, and but I like Costa Rica too.
Yeah, Daniel the Dutchman.
I don't know.
There's nothing wrong with Dutch people. I just happen to not want them to win most of the time.
Yeah. I am excited to have Gonzalez and Parker side by side again. That's going to make me feel a lot better about the crew going forward. Get our
For like a week.
defenders out of there.
Speaking of the crew,
Yeah.
I was really reaching for that one. I was like,
Well, no. If we're gonna do a transition, we should transition to the. So we just talked about Gio Gonzalez's transfer rumors, maybe.
Oh,
and
we should
there's
talk
a bunch
about
of other
other
guys.
Yeah. So Yedlin maybe to Roma, but maybe to apparently everywhere.
Yeah, it sounds like
Pretty much.
They're gonna quarter him, like everybody gets a little bit of him, and then they like transformer like reassemble him after he's absorbed the styles of Italy, England, France, and Portugal. Do I understand this correctly?
Yeah, so it seemed like just a few days ago that it was pretty much going to be Roma. That seemed to be a pretty solid lockdown. Lots of different sources reporting it, but Sounder at Heart today came out and said that they've kind of talked to the agent, and it sounds like there is no done deal. But regardless of where he goes, they still expect that to be this week essentially, or in the next week. That in addition to Roma, clubs in England, Spain, other Italian clubs, and even France are all interested.
If you're thinking about the future right back for the U.S. men's national team, what league do you want to see him play in? Like, what league is the best to go develop in?
The league he starts in.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, so if he goes to Roma, and this was what I read, if he goes to Roma, he probably gets loaned out to Genoa. I read that somewhere.
Right. Yeah, that is accurate. Those are the reports. Is that they're saying basically that they would make the deal now. It would either be a delayed transfer to the winter window, or he would be transferred but loaned to the Sounders for the remainder of the season, and then in December or whenever would then go to Genoa. So it doesn't seem like he'd be first team with Roma right away, but I guess the argument is playing time versus role models. Like if he's going to go play and get to spend time with Ashley Cole or someone like that, then that's a good argument for not getting starting time. But I would hate for him to do something like we've seen other American nationals and go and ride the pine somewhere.
That's why I don't want him to go to England.
Start in MLS.
Yeah, and I
Agreed.
mean beyond
I think
that,
England is probably the worst choice.
When you watch the defensive intelligence and the positioning of a lot of players in England, and it's like he would go there and they'd be like, "You're really fast, just run like a chicken with your head cut off," and that'll last him for like 3 years, and it's not. I don't see that being a good path. I don't think that particularly in the lower levels or mid levels of the English Premier League, like those guys defend abysmally a lot of the time. It's not. Yeah, I don't think it's a good place to develop your tactical awareness and skill.
The other reason I don't like England is because I feel like England is like all of the English journalists, once England got knocked out of the World Cup and didn't have anyone to support, they kind of latched onto the U.S. team, and so they really hyped up the U.S. team back home, I feel like. And Yedlin is especially one of those guys who an English team could sign as a marketing thing and not necessarily for his soccer skills. And that is not generally a good thing when you're trying to develop your soccer skills.
Yeah.
Can we just talk about how awesome it is that a 20-year-old kid could be signed by an English team for marketing from a perspective of like a homegrown Seattle player, that like that's a thing that could happen,
Yeah.
I mean, England makes the most sense from a marketing standpoint just because of all of the players that he played against who are going to be playing in the EPL. I mean, Belgium is like 70% from the EPL, right? With Lukaku and Vermaelen and those guys, and Portugal's got a few too. Nani's in there, and he plays for Manchester, I think, a little bit.
Yeah. But I mean, just because, it is cool that they can sign him as a marketing perspective, but like, I remember in the early 2000s, people were signing Chinese players for marketing gags. It doesn't really help the Chinese team very
Well,
much.
that's because they were trying to expand their brand in China.
Yeah,
I don't think the EPL needs any help. I'm saying it locally, because locally in England, people looked at Yedlin and said, "Holy shit, he can do things against EPL competition."
okay.
I don't think EPL needs any help marketing to us anymore.
You never know. But yeah, I think going to Italy would be a really good move, particularly if you can start in Italy.
I like it. Italy's been mostly kind to Americans, I think.
Yeah, and the I don't know. Spain is so. I mean, I love the style that a lot of Spanish teams play, but it's such a wacky league because it is so completely unbalanced and really chaotic with like constant ownership shifts and clubs going in and out of bankruptcy and players not getting paid and all this stuff. It seems like if you're at one of the big 3 or 4 clubs there, then yeah, but outside of that, it's kind of a cluster. So, I don't really watch any French league, so I have no opinion about that other than that, I suppose.
Bedoya's there.
Yeah, and he's at where? Lyon?
Not.
No, not. Oh, okay. Not.
While we are on this train, let's run down some of the other roster moves we're seeing based on World Cup performances. We're also seeing Beasler looking to get out. We see Jermaine Jones looking to get in. Which ones of these do you guys think will happen? Which ones do you think are just hype right now?
Beasler's weird because he's not 20, he's 27, and he's one of those guys who is like I think Yedlin definitely wants to go to Europe. And I think based on Klinsmann's directive to, hey, go play Champions League soccer, Yedlin thinks he can do that before the next World Cup cycle happens. And he probably should try.
And Roma is Champions League this year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still hesitant on whether I think I want Yedlin to go because I feel like MLS is going to improve a lot over the next few years. I don't know. Beasler, on the other hand, he's 27. Which is surprising if you think about it, I feel like, because he hasn't been a part of the national team picture for that long, but he is already, like, the next World Cup he'll be 31, and he's someone who's probably as open to playing the rest of his career in Kansas City as he is going to Europe and trying for a mid-level German team, hoping to get noticed by someone that can give him Champions League time. That said, I think Beasler makes a more seamless transition to anybody in Europe. I think he starts easier than Yedlin would, and I think if SKC can get $6 million for him, they should probably sell him because his value is never ever going to be higher than it is right now. Same as Yedlin. Yedlin's could be higher, hypothetically, if he does really well for the next 4 years, and specifically if he does amazing again in Russia. But Beasler's market value is never getting any higher than it is right now.
Agreed.
I'd
like to see Beasler stay here. I mean, I'm still of the opinion that, like you said, I very strongly believe that the league is going to grow in leaps and bounds between now and the next World Cup. And if that's the case where Beasler both doesn't have a super strong desire to go, and it's not like, hey, you're going to be starting for Manchester. Like if it's not something like that, I would much rather see him stay here and continue to be a great player in the league, even if it means playing against him. I've kind of changed my tune a little bit on Yedlin. Like, I really love the idea of him staying here, but the more I started reading and realizing that the Sounders get 75% of any transfer fee, I started seeing dollar signs. I'll be honest.
Yeah, and that's my worry.
I mean, they're talking a $5 to $8 million transfer fee right now, which means the Sounders would get $675,000 in allocation, and everything else would be money to spend on the academy, like we've talked about, and on training facilities and physio and.
When you get that allocation money, and you can be another Toronto. I mean, Seattle's already halfway there in the first place, but you can kill the salary cap with that allocation money. You don't have
You
a salary cap for a year
You
or
can
two.
pay down Ozzy Alonso, take the DP tag off of him, and bring in another full-fledged expensive DP.
Correct. You could have like 5 DPs with that allocation money, basically.
Bring in Jermaine Jones.
Oh my God! Don't even say that. That would make me so happy.
You guys
Because
are already running away with MLS. You don't need Jermaine Jones.
Well, for next year, Ian, we got to keep it up.
So who
We
gets
got to
Jermaine Jones?
defend the treble that we earned this year.
All right, yeah, let's do it. Who gets Jermaine Jones? My money's on the Aztecs.
The Aztecs. I like that we've already settled on that.
I don't know. You've got to think that NYCFC, they're going to have a lot of money.
They are going to splash the pot.
They are really going to have a lot of cash, and they're going to want to come in and compete. So
Yeah, but you only get so many DP spots. Jermaine Jones is getting a DP spot, and they're gonna use all theirs on international players like Lampard and other guys.
I don't know. You never know. I mean, you've got to think that for a team that or for a group that spends so much energy. You look at what they've done in Manchester with really embedding themselves into the culture there, getting themselves involved with building giant training centers and trying to, participate as much as possible in the national team and playing up their links to the local community there, that pulling in a player from the U.S. national team would probably be a pretty good marketing move, especially a player from the national team who was, I think, Tim Howard's, absolutely epic game against Belgium aside, probably the most consistent best player for the U.S. national team.
Yeah. Another guy whose stock is never going to be higher, right? I mean, right.
So you think about how to ingratiate yourself to a bunch of people who might be a little suspicious of the ownership group. Bringing in one of the stars from the national team isn't a bad way to do that. So.
Another team whose fans are a little bit suspicious of their ownership group and has also been linked to Jermaine Jones in the past, and I think should get Jermaine Jones, is DC United.
Oh.
No bias or anything.
Of course not.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. What MLS fan bases are not just a little suspicious of their ownership group? I mean, there's probably 3 or 4, but most of them are kind of yeah, wait, what are these assholes doing again?
Doesn't SKC love their ownership group?
And they also want Jermaine Jones.
Yeah, why wouldn't they? I believe Seattle folks probably unreservedly love their ownership group.
I would
maybe
agree with that.
I gotta say Toronto starting this year.
Yep. Toronto probably fans of their ownership group. In Portland, it's very, very, very mixed feelings. Not even personnel decisions, everybody fucks up, but really just the incessant just ass clownery of Merritt Paulson. You're constantly just facing him. I get people asking me about that, he said it's great. He's really vocal. I'm like, no, it's not. It would be great if he was vocal and not just saying stupid shit all the time. But yeah, I think maybe NYCFC. I don't know. You never. I mean, yeah.
Well, D. Roy Jenkins thinks they can do no wrong.
Yeah, well, D. Roy Jenkins is an idiot. So. It's good. It's funny. D. Roy Jenkins showed up, and then Chance Encounter kind of stopped being such an asshole and went back to saying rational things. And to his defense, he actually knows a reasonable amount about the game and can be funny. And I was just wow, it's he handed off the captain's armband. He's okay, here, it's your turn now. People who don't hang out on our MLS are what the fuck are they talking about?
Well, they don't. How do they just even discover our podcast if they don't hang out on our MLS?
People who don't hang out enough to know.
Speaking of our MLS, a bunch of new users this week. That's who's here now. That's who doesn't know what's going on.
Cool.
We went from 20,000 to 25,000 in a month.
Yeah, I'm totally looking forward to debating promotion and relegation and winter schedule and
every week over and over.
Salary cap just over and over and over. It's gonna be so good, guys.
Guys, this is just a chance to pretend we're more important than we are. So if you're a new listener, who just joined, We are very important people.
Yeah, we get a lot of clout. A lot of clout.
I'm gonna counterpoint Josh and say that we welcome you. Thank you for listening.
We've even talked to people like Matt Doyle and the main mod, who claims he's not the main mod, but he is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably. He's the most active of the mods. The most active and the least nonsensical.
Does anyone else feel like we got the brush off about getting called the official podcast instead of the unofficial podcast?
Then the World Cup happened.
Yeah, so that's...
Convenient.
Yeah.
Very convenient that the World Cup happened.
Hey, speaking of friend of the show, Matt Doyle, I believe
he said after the World
we might have to... After the World Cup, we gotta get that scheduled and get a follow-up going.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because he certainly has not talked enough about what he thought happened with the U.S. team. So we want him to talk just a little bit more.
I think he's written like 7 articles a day since.
I think, okay, here's my biggest question for him. Is because he's like talked so much shit about how he played in Brazil. So my question is, what's the difference between what we did in this World Cup versus what Chelsea did to win Champions League in 2012?
They won Champions League in 2012. I think the winning part.
Yeah.
But
You mean play style?
Yeah. Because the gulf in talent between Chelsea and the teams that they played to win Champions League is a lot smaller than the gulf in talent between our national team and the teams we played in Germany and Belgium.
Well, but here's the thing: is you know, like, I actually think that anyone complaining about the team, that game against Germany, it was close to 100 degrees on the field. Everyone was exhausted. Everybody who went into Manaus had a really rough rest of the group stage. So there's no way you can criticize the U.S. team for how they played in that game. And against Belgium, like, I think there are some, like, Belgium talent level, unquestionably, much more talented team than the U.S. But Belgium did not play particularly well for a lot of that game. And, you know, I think that the U.S. could have been a little bit more adventurous. And, you know, even then still, like, yeah, they didn't play a great game, and we still were like one Wondolowski fluff away from getting out of that game. That said, though, yeah, I mean, the U.S. team is not super exciting to watch. They're not particularly adventurous. Nobody holds the ball very well. Michael Bradley, you know.
Well, Josie holds the ball pretty well.
Not without.
I mean, yeah, I was gonna say, like, at what point did his hamstring allow him to, you know, that was like, there was like 20 minutes of that.
Yeah, no, it would have been great, but it never happened. And we didn't bring Eddie Johnson.
Well, but honestly, Josie Altidore holds up the ball really well, but by, like, you know, manhandling somebody behind him while he stands there waiting for somebody to pass to. But I don't think that we had the runners coming into space to really enable that to happen.
That's what Yedlin was for. When Yedlin came on, that's exactly what we did.
But he came on for injury. It wasn't planned that way.
Yeah, I mean, this wasn't like a tactical approach. But the thing is, like, Klinsmann
I'm sure he
has
would
never
have come on, though, because he came on in both the Germany and Belgium, or Portugal games.
Yeah, but he came on again in, like, the 60th or 70th minute. Anyway, so what I'm saying is I think that you can kind of critique the play style, but you shouldn't blame everything on the play style. Like, the U.S. had a remarkably good tournament and was very, very close to going through the round of 16. I mean, going into the quarterfinals, and you know, and even after in overtime, after they got Julian Green goal, they were still really, really pressing, and Belgium definitely sweated out that one. And talent-wise, they're a way better team. The thing is, though, like, the style that you play when you look at Costa Rica, like, the U.S. national team is more talented than the Costa Rica team. The Costa Rica team did much, much better because they're a better drilled team.
Not against the Dutch, though. They played more negatively against the Dutch than we did against Belgium.
Oh, they're an incredibly negative team. I'm saying they got further because they're so well drilled defensively.
And they got to Greece in the round of 16.
Well, yeah, I mean,
if we'd played Greece in the round of 16,
but they beat Italy and Uruguay and tied England.
That's true.
So you know. Anyway, I'm just saying, like, I think
we do that too, though. I think that we beat England in this group this year.
Yeah.
You know, if we're in their place.
I think there's space to criticize the style that the U.S. team played because you've got to be a little more adventurous and you've got to push a little bit more if you want to turn those really, really close games your way. But at the same time, like they had a remarkable World Cup. I don't know. I feel like criticizing them.
I think one thing that hurt them was that when they did press, they looked so good that the fans were saying, "Why weren't we pressing more often?"
Yeah.
Because when we had our backs against the wall, we looked amazing.
Except for our finishing. You guys must have seen the same Yedlin highlight reel that I did, and boy, we flubbed a lot of chances.
Yeah.
But just to be able to create that many chances, like that's a great sign. I'm not saying that we missed those chances, but I'm saying that if you look at the first 70 minutes of that game, we weren't really going after those chances. And then once we were forced to go after them, we were finding the chances without any hesitation. And I'm not saying you can run at that pace for 90 minutes. I'm just saying, is there a way you can, turn it on and off as you go along to where you're not always on the back heel?
And not to beat a dead horse, but Ian, you claimed that because Klinsmann chose Wando over EJ, you therefore lost the debate because he was the final word. Does Wando flubbing his chance mean
not at all.
that...
Not at all. EJ's not even there. If Eddie Johnson's in that game instead of Wando, EJ is not in the place where Wando is to have a chance to put that away.
What about the tournament, though? Not just...
I think
with Josie going down.
Yeah, EJ should have been there.
Yeah.
Because EJ... I
believe if EJ's there that we play EJ and Dempsey up top instead of playing Dempsey solo.
Yeah, and it works better. And Bradley can do what he was meant to do in the World Cup instead of playing this weird "I'm gonna do everything" role.
Well, let me also play devil's advocate here and say, I think the Ghana game, we can all agree was just not a great match, even though we came out on our right side of it. We didn't look great, but if you look at we took it to Portugal, and I think that if you're looking at that match, I think the other two matches, it's a whole different story because you're playing Germany, who, as we saw today, can put up 7 goals on Brazil, and then you're playing Belgium, who beat us 4-2 the last time we met, and it looked worse than that.
Yeah, it was more like 6-0.
I think if you look at the competition, you can't, you have to shell up a little bit against those two teams and hope for the best. I think you have to play a little bit of Bradley ball in that situation.
Yeah, and after watching what Germany did today, I'm totally okay with how we played Germany in that last group stage
after
game.
Manaus, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's, I guess, the frustrating thing for some people, and for me a little bit too, is that when we really turned it on against Belgium and against Portugal, it's because we were down. And then when that happened, we actually played really fantastic. It played pretty even.
It was very
outplayed Portugal even. We definitely outplayed Portugal. I think
I think Portugal was the one game that we were turned on the whole time.
Right, because we were down really early. We got down in the 5th minute.
Yeah, I guess that's. But I feel like even when we were up, we didn't really pull back.
Right, because we'd been pressing the whole game. It's so much easier to keep attacking when you've been attacking for so long than it is to just turn that switch, which is why I feel like it took a few minutes after Belgium scored. But yeah.
So, speaking of Dempsey.
Yeah?
Yeah, Dempsey's going to be on Letterman. How do you guys feel about that?
Does anybody still watch that show?
Old people who don't watch soccer.
Oh, okay, there we go. Because I was like, I guess that would be a big deal if I even knew when it was on or what channel it was on. But I remember watching David Letterman when I was a kid. But when I was a kid, it was the '80s. It's been a while. But yeah, he's kind of a dick, right, Letterman? He's probably going to make jokes about soccer. It should be interesting.
That's always as somebody like yourself who kind of doesn't remember Letterman except for the '80s and at the time was too young to care. My impression of him has always been of a dick. I'm used to Conan being the funny guy that he is, or Jimmy Fallon or whatever, and Dave just kind of seems like bitter and shitty.
Yeah, I'll tell you, if it was Dempsey on the Daily Show, I would be excited.
Amazing.
I would be
John played soccer, you know.
So much more excited for that. You know, it's like on Letterman. I'm like, oh, well, I guess that's a thing. You know,
the old people will continue to hate soccer.
It's more of a cultural marker than something that's actually going to be exciting to watch.
If there are any old people listening right now, don't bother. Get out of here. All right, let's start wrapping it up. How about everybody talks about one thing that we haven't covered yet for a minute or so. It's not a lightning round. Don't get me wrong here.
It's like any of the MLS games that happened.
Yeah, like you can talk about one of the games. You can talk about just life in general. Let's kick it off with Ian. Put him on the spot because his name's first on my screen here.
So it's too bad Dennis isn't here.
Not lightning round.
It's too bad Dennis isn't here because his team totally screwed up against my team. My team beat his team in Toronto, and it was awesome. Nanner. But the more important thing is that nobody in the East won this week except for DC, and now we are top of the East. We're borrowing it from Kansas City.
Is that how you get to the top of the East? Is everybody else in your conference loses? I've been wondering what it would be like to have a team that plays in a slightly weaker conference.
Slightly, that's generous.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have our conference doesn't have some of its biggest stars, like Tim Cahill and the SIC guys.
A lot of people to the World Cup, just a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's back, but I can pretend that he's not.
Yeah, Roy Miller, big names.
So we're gonna rename this. This is no longer not lightning round. This is now the gloat corner.
I have literally nothing to gloat about.
You guys want to talk about West Coast, Best Coast?
Clarification.
You just gloated about the West Coast.
I think DC has a legit shot at an automatic Champions League berth for winning the regular season East, and B, making it to the Eastern Conference Finals and losing 7-1 against Kansas City.
Wow.
I support both of them. I believe that those are both fair.
Yeah.
I think DC definitely has a legit shot at getting the consolation prize CCL entrance.
And we're definitely
because you're going to win the East, but you're going to lose the Supporters' Shield by like 15 points.
Oh yeah, for sure. But that's whatever. I mean, you guys have already won the Supporters' Shield. You're on your way.
We have a 7-point lead. I don't know about that.
Be careful, because I remember there was a lot of that talk last year at the end of the year.
There was a lot of that talk last year, and there was a lot of that not happening last year.
Yeah. So.
But it's okay because I'm not a Seattle fan, so I can jinx them all I want.
Oh man. I'll go. I think Chivas winning 2 games in a row deserves. Chivas winning 2.
Isn't it 3 now?
Oh, it's 3. Yeah, Chivas winning 3 games in a row, while breaking the lowest attendance records, just consistently. To be those players out there playing on in an empty stadium, like de facto empty stadium, and putting in actually fairly good shifts. Granted, against San Jose and Montreal, who are both having pretty miserable seasons, but Chivas is also not having a great season. And that they've put together a couple wins, and Cubo Torres is playing really, really well. I would be shocked if he's still. I mean, it's sad. He's going to leave MLS. He's going to go back to a Mexican club at the end of the season, and it would be great if he would stick around. But
well, I mean,
at least they're getting they're getting like a reasonable send off. Like okay, they're like not just because you could see when they were saying, okay, team's done, rebranding everything, scrapping everybody. You could see it. Like this is going to be the year that they're going to get like 6 points for the season or something like that, But
what they're doing is they're giving new ownership a couple of toys to play with. Cubo Torres mostly, and then Jermaine Jones later, and then maybe.
You're really on this thing, Jones to the Aztecs.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen.
We'll see.
You heard it here first. Ian's on top of it.
I don't think I'm the first one. I think a lot of people have been hinting at that because he wants to play. He has a home in LA, like Klinsmann does. But him going to the Galaxy would be boring, and it'd be a nice gift to new ownership to give them Jermaine Jones.
Actually, it might not be that boring. LA has not been particularly impressive this year, honestly. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the first year that LA doesn't make the playoffs in a long, long time.
I've been on that train. I've been on that, like, LA doesn't look particularly impressive, and I also, because of the Sounders' collapse last year, am not a huge fan of points per game, but there was a great statistical article that came out this morning that said the Galaxy have, like, a 95% chance to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So
they're gonna make the play. So I feel like I'm not sure if I've written this or if I've said it here, but I like that LA is a borderline playoff team, and I like that Houston is bad because those teams have been relatively constant over these last couple of years, and them going into a decline kind of shows the overall improvement of MLS. Like Seattle has improved so much from last year.
So much, just God.
The amount of Yedlin's improved so much, and that's part of it. But another part of it is
Chad Marshall is why we have improved. And honestly, Gonzalo Pineda. Instead of just having Ozzy in the middle of the park, you now have two strong defensive players who can also make breakout passes. Two players have massively impact, and what do you know? It's at the spine.
And Dempsey's first full year in MLS has been pretty good. Portland, I think, is similar to the level that they were at last year. They're just not getting the results. They're going to make the playoffs. I feel like. I don't know who at the expense of, because Vancouver looks good.
I think Portland will make a strong push with the two new DPs. I definitely see them again. Maybe they're in the 4th or 5th position, but I would be surprised if they didn't make it. Not shocked, but surprised.
You two play an Open Cup quarterfinal tomorrow.
Hey, that's where I was going next. Thanks, Ian.
Yeah, gonna do that. I'm gonna go down there.
First off, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, there's actually there are a lot of people who are very excited to go see this game. I think just because there's so many people who are I've never been to Starfire. Fuck it, let's go. Even though it's a Wednesday, I think there's 300 people coming up from Portland, and then another 50 or 60 from Seattle who are all gonna go.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great atmosphere in that tiny little stadium.
Meanwhile,
speaking of the U.S. Open Cup and our exciting match tomorrow, because for those of you that aren't sick of hearing about Cascadia games, this is a double Seattle Portland. Not only play each other in the Open Cup tomorrow, but we also have our game Sunday night on ESPN2 as well. But Open Cup, I'm getting an update right now. As of just a minute ago, Philadelphia was up over New England 2-0 in the 69th minute on a goal from Casey and Letou. But right now it's listed as interrupted due to bad weather. So depending on if that holds, Philly will just be handed the win.
I feel like that happens so much in the U.S. Open Cup. It's not even funny.
It does. It does. It's crazy.
It never happens in MLS, but it happens literally every round in 4 different games.
Yeah. There was a hurricane and stuff, but, no big deal.
We're going to play through the hurricane tomorrow against Houston.
So there's that game. There's that game tonight. We've got Portland and Seattle tomorrow, and then something I'm sure Ian is super psyched to talk about. There are 2 lower division teams that are still left, and they both play tomorrow.
And hopefully Atlanta gets their ass kicked. And because to hell with Atlanta. We got to talk about Orlando, by the way. They were shameful this weekend. But
we'll get there.
Before that happens, the Railhawks, I'm excited. Not as excited as I would be if I were down there, but I'm still excited. And if they win, they'll get to host a semifinal against probably Philly, and I will be there for that. I will finally be back in North Carolina to watch the Railhawks host an Open Cup semifinal, hopefully.
And who do the Railhawks have to beat?
Dallas.
Dallas.
Who got Mauro Diaz back, which how have we not talked about that?
Because we've been talking about the World Cup. We got stuff to do. Let's talk about Orlando real quick. Someone
Okay.
said we're
Orlando! Hey, crowd problems. It'll be cool once they get into MLS. They and San Jose can duke it out for who's got the douchier fans.
He's the worst.
Oh, sorry, San Jose fans who listen. I know that the vast majority of you are very, very nice people.
Yeah, and I don't think San Jose's ever done the trifecta of trying to set the opponent's stadium on fire, punching a 12-year-old kid, and setting off smoke bombs in the
They've come
opponent's
close.
supporter section.
They've
Yeah.
come close.
Those
They
things
certainly
are
did their best.
not as bad as Daily Two Things.
Yeah,
I feel like Orlando only pulled it off because it's lower league and the security is slightly more lax. I feel like if San Jose was given those same situations, they might have also pulled it off.
Here's the thing. According to my lower league source, which is username Iron Goalie, they had extended security at Al Lang Stadium, which is where Tampa plays, around the Orlando supporters, and even that did not help. Apparently.
You can't have a security guard with every 12-year-old. I guess that's the bottom.
Yeah. So what, like, what does an ownership group even do about that? I mean, you see like
faster is what they do. Jesus.
Yeah.
Orlando hasn't said a damn thing.
Yeah.
Have they at all?
They did.
I mean, but legitimately, what do you do? So you see what goes on in England, and to lesser extents in Spain and Germany, where they look on closed circuit TV and they identify who people are and revoke their season ticket or whatever and don't let them back in. We don't do closed circuit stuff, I think, at any of the stadiums except maybe like Seattle and New England, because I know they've got pretty beefed up camera situation for the NFL teams. But I mean, that's just not something that we do in MLS. So then you just wind up punishing the whole supporters group, which is what you see in San Jose, and that inspires a huge backlash. And you get a lot of people unhappy that they're not allowed to wave banners and do all these other things. So what do you do as an owner theoretically?
I think USL Pro needs to take a strong stance and make Orlando play their first couple of regular season games, their next couple of regular season games in front of empty stadiums. Because it's
way too much. That's absurd.
Yeah, that's never happened in the U.S. So the team.
No.
And you're talking about you can clear out the supporter section if you want to, but you're talking about their opening MLS games, or are you talking about their next few?
I'm talking about the next couple of USL Pro games, which they play at the Disney complex, in front of 5,000 people. So just do that.
Yeah, that'll never happen.
Rather than banning traveling.
Yeah, travel ban seems far more
because it happened on someone
realistic.
else's turf.
More realistic, but it's harder to enforce.
You want to take fans away from a team that's just trying to find its feet still, especially when a lot of those people who would be coming to those games are families, things like that, not people who are punching families and things like that. Like you can shut down the supporters group. I think. And also,
family people, not family punching people.
This is the first time it's gone that far. They haven't had a chance to see.
But the Orlando supporters group, especially in the games against Tampa Bay, have been particularly shitty. Especially in USL Pro circles, they're sort of like the Atlanta and Cosmos, but even to a more violent extent, or a more disliked extent. Just how their supporters groups behave. I mean, it's all of them. It's the Ruckus, it's the Iron Line firm, and I know there are a lot of Orlando supporters on our MLS, and some of them might listen to this, but I feel like you have to take. I understand it's an extreme measure to go to, but you really need the leadership of those supporters groups to get the message that they need to control their people, because there are people who would do that exist in every supporters group, but they don't because the leadership is hypothetically pretty strong. I mean, Seattle and Portland, you guys have so many supporters. At least, maybe a handful of them are terrible people, but they don't do anything because you guys have good leadership, right?
There are more that there's more than a handful that are terrible people, but we have really, really good self-policing tactics. We actually have a whole group of our own security in addition to the stadium security, and we have no hesitation to kick people out of the section and ban them for, slurs or inappropriate behavior, throwing things, whatever it might be. It happens all the time, and, we're pretty solid about self-policing. So you're right, strong leadership makes a difference.
And
on that note, guys, I am running out of time here.
Okay.
You want to do some bold predictions? Everybody's favorite?
Let's do it. Come on, don't think about it. What do you have to think about? It's bold predictions.
I'm ready. I'm going to do it. I'm jumping in.
Okay.
Bold prediction. Seattle-Portland Open Cup goes to extra time. Seattle wins on penalties. But Portland gets their revenge and beats Seattle at CenturyLink on Sunday night.
I was actually going to say the inverse. I think that Portland will make it tomorrow in the Open Cup, but will lose on Sunday. That's not even that bold. That's actually pretty conservative, I think. More bold prediction. I think Carolina's going to beat Dallas.
Oh, God damn it.
You're allowed to say the same thing as me.
I was going to take it one step further and say, so I'm going up to the Pacific Northwest in a couple weeks. But my bold prediction is I'm going to go there again in September or October, whenever the Open Cup final is, to see the Railhawks play against the winner of Portland-Seattle in the Open Cup final.
My bold
That
prediction.
is bold.
Oh, that is bold.
My
Chris?
bold prediction isn't that bold in a won't it happen kind of way as much as it is just going right against Ian. My bold prediction is that LA2 will never be called the Aztecs because you will not have the Galaxy and the Aztecs playing in the same town because the team names would just sound like a bunch of penny slots.
I got to agree with Ian though. I think the winner of the Portland-Seattle game wins the Open Cup.
That's not what I said. I said we were going to play against Carolina.
I'm taking it a step further, Ian, and I'm saying out of the remaining teams, I think the winner of the Portland-Seattle game wins the Open Cup. Uh-oh.
There it is. Hey, everybody, follow us on Twitter. Whatever that is.
Yeah. And we're on iTunes. We never say that anymore. We're also on Stitcher.
That's why I'm here. I'm a blast from the past, everybody.
Oh, and if you want to follow us individually, or at least me, I'm Ian Armas Foster. You guys can say your Twitters too if you want.
Nah.
Okay.
Yeah. Everybody just look through Ian's. He tweets at us sometimes. Just find us there. It's like a weird thing, but there's no weird hats and shirts going on. Anyway, that's the weird and unnecessary note we can call it on.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Next time.